Hi everyone and welcome to this video. In this video I'm going to go through how to build your own PC. So the first thing you'll need to know is about the motherboard and the CPU. And the motherboard ties all the components together, and the CPU is basically the brain of the system. And I'd recommend that you choose these two first. So really the first one is actually the CPU. So CPUs, they're created by two major companies, and they are Intel and AMD. And then from these they go into to families really, and I'll just let you know some of the AMD families. There's AM1, AM2, AM3, AM4. At the time of creating this video, AM4 is brand new and you can't easily get the parts, and the parts are really expensive. So I'm not going to be using AM4, I'm going to be using AM3. So now, if you've chosen your socket, these are called sockets by the way, I called them families before, but they're actually called sockets. So after you've chosen your socket, look online and look for CPUs of that socket, and you'll find that they're sold by clock and also the amount of cores, so clock and cores. And very generally, the higher the clock speed the better, but the more power consumption, and the more amount of cores, the more it can do several things at once. So if you're running lots of different applications, or your workload is split, or the CPU's workload is split, more cores will be better. So anyway, for me, I've chosen one, and I've got an AMD, I've got AM3, and the clock on mine is around about 3 gigahertz, and the cores, there are 4 cores, so it's quad core. So there's my CPU. That's the one I'm going to be using, okay? So there's my CPU. Now, because we know the all-important socket, which is here, you can then start looking at motherboards. So you've got to look for motherboards for that socket, okay? But then, how many RAM slots do you need? What size board? So, do you want SLI? In other words, do you want 2 graphics cards in? Is it for a super gaming computer? Do you want onboard graphics? There are lots of different factors. Do you want USB 2? Do you want USB 3? So anyway, having considered all of those factors, you should be able to come up with and choose a board. So this is the board that I've got. This is the board that I've chosen, and this is of course an AM3 Plus, which means that it's compatible with AM3 CPUs and AM4, but I'll be using it for AM3. I've got 4 sockets here for RAM, not that that matters too much. What else have we got here? We've got 1 PCIe slot, which is for a graphics card. 1 is fine for me. And what else have we got here? We've got USB 3, as you can see here, because it's got a blue inside. We've got USB 2 as well. It's a HDMI output, DVI, and the regular old one, and some more USBs. So for me, this is fine. Okay, so that's the board I've chosen. Okay, so now you've chosen your board, well, your CPU and your board, you can now go on to other things like RAM, for example. And here's my RAM. I've got 2 of those, and I've also got 2 of these. Why not, since I've got 4 slots? And RAM comes in speeds 2. It actually comes in like sockets, so you can see here the amount of space between that notch. If I remember rightly, that's called DDR3. And if I just get my motherboard, you can see that the notch aligns correctly, therefore I can install this. But you can't install all different types. You've got to get the correct RAM. But again, there are only 3 or 4 different types. Alright, so if you look at the product specifications of the motherboard in the documentation, you can see what sort of RAM or memory it can accept. And it says here support for DDR3 133 plus overclocked memory modules. So that's fine, because these here are, it says here DDR 1333. So these are fine. The amount of RAM you choose, again, that's up to you. It depends on your needs, but for me, I'll be getting 8 gig. And mine is DDR3. Okay, next, when you get your CPU, you may or may not get a heatsink and fan. And for me, I did get one, but it was a rubbish, cheap thing, and I didn't really want to use that because quite often they can be noisy. So I've got my own separate one, and this is the one that I've got, and it's basically a fanless, silent heatsink. And here it is, and these are about £30 or something like that, or £20–30. And you can actually mount a big fan on here, but there's not really much need to do that. Okay, so you can see that it's got a flat bottom there, copper, there's some pipes going up here, and it's got all these fins. So you'll need, well, if you haven't got one, you'll need to get one of these, but this is an upgrade really. You don't actually have to have one this big, but that's up to you. Okay, so the next thing you need is a PSU, and this is an economy, sort of mid-range PSU. And again, you need to have a think about how much power you're going to need, and you can find out that on your CPU's specifications and your motherboard and all the different bits and pieces to find out how much wattage you're going to need. And that's the thing that tells you how much wattage you're going to need for your PSU, of course. Some other things you need to know are you going to have the right sockets for your graphics card? That's one to look out for too. Alright, so there's my PSU. Okay, so the next thing you need to think about is hard drives. Sometimes they're called HDD, hard disk drive. And these come in two main technologies. They come in, well actually, they come in IDE, which are becoming very old, and they come in SATA, which is the latest one. And there's no point in bothering with IDE, so get a SATA one. And then when it comes to SATA, you've still got two different choices. You've got mechanical, and you have SSD. And SSD is a solid state drive. And the thing with solid state drives is they have less capacity than mechanic for the same price, but they're a lot faster. So what I do is I have an SSD as the main hard drive, and this will only have a small capacity. I can't remember the capacity, but it's not anything huge. I think it's about, I think it might be 256 gig, something like that. So there's the SSD. That'll be my primary hard drive. And this is my secondary hard drive, which will have a much bigger capacity. So the capacity here is 1 terabyte. And yeah, this is these are cheaper per byte really, but they're not as fast. So this is going to be my secondary hard drive. Okay, so the next thing you're going to need, or you may need, depending on your circumstance, to play games you're going to need a graphics card. So this is my graphics card. It's quite an old one, but it's still by far powerful enough to play even most of the modern games. Maybe not play them extremely well, but it will be able to play them. So this is a PCIe graphics card, and most of them will be PCIe. It has two outputs here for two monitors, and it needs two of these power plugs, and there we go. To find out, or to find a good graphics card, you can actually look at the fill rates online, and you can tell if a graphics card is good or not really. So that's my graphics card, and you can see that it's quite a big thing. But anyway, so you may need one of those too. I always buy graphics cards second hand, and the reason being is that if you want to get a brand new graphics card, it will cost hundreds, but if you have one that's a few months old, which is probably not far off performance wise, you can save a huge amount of money. So there we go, that's my graphics card. And one last thing you'll need is of course the case, and I've just got a cheap old case. Okay, so let's get started.